I'm sorry, sir. This is a private mountain.
But I only wanted it.
This mountain is reserved for patrons of drive-in theaters.
But
it's a supply depot for all sorts of good things, which people can get at the snack bar. Like soft drinks, hot dogs, good hot coffee, candy bars of all kinds, delicious popcorn, and refreshing ice cream treats.
But I am a patron of this drive-in.
Well, why didn't you say so? Be our guest.
Nobody pray for me. It been a day for me. Yeah. Hey, I remember syrup sandwiches and crime allowances. Finesse a nigga with some counterfeits, but now I'm counting this. Parmesan where my accountant lives. In fact, I'm down in this. You say with my boo babe tastes like Kool-Aid for the analyst. Girl, I can buy your Westie world with my base.
Underground. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Custom Underground Podcast. I am the real chosen one. That's the Mac Reaper. And all the way from Australia, we have Nick Custom Toys with us. Welcome to the show.
Hey guys.
What's up?
Thanks for having
How's
me.
it going?
Nah, I'm really excited to get on here.
Yeah, no. So, like, this is Nick, who did an amazing first round. I think, man, you had the most exciting matchup from my point of view, for sure. And your Son of Havoc was brilliant. I absolutely loved it, man. Like, yeah, from the torso, the boots, everything. So, for those of you guys tuning in, if you missed round one, that's who Nick is. Man, so tell us about how you got into customizing, because you're relatively new to the field of wrestling customs, right?
Oh yeah, well, because I was collecting since I was in, I think, grade 2, which is 8 years old.
Oh wow, yeah.
So I was collecting. I was on wrestling figs when I was 12, 13, and I started making a few on there. It originally was just like part swapping.
Yeah.
Keep the Jax Deluxe figures. I think I first tried to make a Dolph Ziggler with a Nikki head, the Spirit Squad. So like that was pretty trash. And I just kept starting things and never finishing them. But like I built skills over that. And I think I entered one of the custom tournaments on there.
Yeah.
I made a Ruthless Aggression Sin Cara, but that was probably 6 years ago or so.
Oh wow, man, that's a while ago. So, did you start customizing wrestling figures first? Then is that kind of how you went about it? Okay.
Yeah, I was obsessed with wrestling, like when I was little, and then I grew out of it. I think it was up until Elite 20. I think I was collecting them mad crazy. I think I was getting every set, and I was just part swapping, cutting bits up. But I've got this thing where I'll always start something but never finish it.
Yeah.
Like I was like preparing for this. I was thinking at work. The Son of Havoc's probably the first wrestling figure I actually fully finished, like sealed and everything.
Oh man.
So
wow.
Yeah.
You did that within 3 weeks. That's super fast.
Yeah, I know.
Home run out of the park on your first try. Yeah.
It is. I've been making the 1/6 figures for the last 2 years or so, just painting them. So I've built skills over that, and I studied product design at university. So learning skills from that as well, that's helped to.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. Yeah. No, that's awesome. Like, I think your custom to me was like one of the most detailed. You had Son of Havoc, who doesn't have a crazy attire, but the way you sculpted his body, that figure is pretty much left. No part of it's left untouched by you. You really went through, refined the whole figure. What was your process like in determining Son of Havoc? Why Son of Havoc?
Well, I was pretty caught up with picking someone that's not in the WWE. Like, I don't venture far from the WWE at all, apart from maybe TNA.
Oh, wow.
So, trying to find a wrestler that I may be comfortable with designing, kind of know somewhat. I knew Matt Cross from something. I think they were in wrestling figs. There was a really cool animation that had a Matt Cross versus CM Punk, and the guy made customs of them both.
Oh wow!
And yeah, I remember Matt Cross from that, and I put 2 and 2 together that he's Son of Havoc, and I just chose that. I'm like, I knew it was simple, but I'm not too comfortable with my line work just yet because I'm used to using the bigger figures. So I know I can sculpt. I know I can sculpt pretty well. So I knew from the get go that I wanted to make the most of my sculpting work and try to put as much sculpting into a piece as I could, just to show that off.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So like I wanted to go for a figure that I could sculpt the most outlandish or like just go as detailed as possible. And then that's where I went on Havoc.
That's a smart strategy. Stick to your strengths. What you know is works well for you, and it turned out amazing. It's a great figure. You did the 2 heads. I thought that was really brilliant.
Yeah, I appreciate the kind words. I had to add something, so I knew it was simple. And a lot of the guys in here are amazing. A lot of the competitors. I knew Bubble and Squeak was phenomenal. Didn't expect him to what he did. That was
it was a really good Ray. I mean, it was a really perfect Rey Mysterio. I mean, it was tough, man. I don't even want to try doing that figure after that. But
he's awesome.
Yeah, it was a great match. I thought it was really even, and both customs were like final worthy. Like it was such. I think
absolutely.
Man, it was like Beyondo versus Rocky Jabroni from the first tournament. So it was really close. And you guys, I remember someone saying somewhere along the exchange that like you guys set up to steal a show, and I think you guys did that. You guys like, man, really. I think the first round that was the most exciting for me to follow. But let's talk about your sculpting skills. How did they get so good? I mean, what's your preferred medium? Like epoxy, or do you use? What do you use?
I use epoxy sculpt for the wrestling figures. I was trying for the last year or so. I was trying to sculpt my own 1/6 scale head sculpts.
Yeah.
Like I obviously I'd fine tuned my stuff, my techniques a lot. Just keep practicing and practicing. Really well known sculptor came down to Melbourne, I think last year, and I did he did a course down here. So one of my teachers suggested I do that. It was a 2-day course over like 7 hours for both days.
Oh man, that's
so we did like face sculpting and everything. That was spectacular. So I reckon that definitely helps me. And
I think you bring up a really good point, is that we all start somewhere and just keep practicing, put in the time, put in the effort like anything else in life, and just keep at it. And, then you get to obviously where you are, which is an amazing sculptor. So
I appreciate it.
Really great. Can't wait to see more of your work as you put it out there for us.
Yeah, well, now that I'm out, I've been just getting back
out because there's the gift of the gods, which we're going to talk about later in this very episode. So stay tuned. Second chance opportunity.
I've been keeping my eye on that, just to hold it down low. Trying to think of ways to get back in. But yeah, I've just been like.
That's really cool. Like I know I got a similar story, kind of like with the Stan Winston. I don't know. Do you guys know about the Stan Winston school online? I was working on a Batman suit actually, and so I was gonna sculpt a muscle suit, and I was like, hey, this is easy enough. Let's sew the foam, let's carve it up like a life size. Do that because I got a lot of bat suits. So my other thing is Batman. But I had subscription, so I had a couple more videos. So I started clicking on one, and one of them was like head sculpting for like the size of an action figure head, and the other one was like making toys. So like started watching those again, and I was like, man, I got the itch to customize again, and now it's this again.
That's awesome. Yeah. No, it's incredible what can get you back into it. Like I had written off wrestling for maybe 2 years or so while I was doing the 1/6 stuff, and then I was listening to the Edge and Christian podcast, and then just suddenly they
oh wow, really
onto it. Yeah,
that's cool.
And I also got to meet Chris from Old School Customs.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I was selling some of my figures, and then I sold one to him, and he was just telling me about all his work and all his custom work, and then seeing that also like just sparked me into getting back into them.
Wow,
that was awesome.
And so that was like 6 years ago, or was that more recently?
I've just gotten back into the wrestling, I think, November,
Wow.
October, November.
Super
Yeah.
awesome.
And we snatched you up right away and put you in our contest because we saw your good work. So absolutely. And
I appreciate it.
So let's go
I mean,
about like your what are your sculpting tips for someone that's just beginning? Like I know we get a lot of sculptors that haven't had a lot of experience, but I know your work is really smooth, and I'm assuming, I'm sure you use like water, and I'm sure you sand it. But how detailed is your process? And let's really talk about that because to me, your work in progress pictures were awesome to look at themselves. I love looking at prototypes and stuff like that. I love seeing an idea like manifest itself. So go ahead and talk about your process.
yeah, sure. Okay, yeah, so like it was kind of hard. I always have an idea. I've had with uni. We've learned to plan out your process. Before that, I just went straight gunzo in, like just go straight into it. And I always got midway through and just cracked it and hated it what I was doing.
Really?
So yeah, like that's why I never finished one. Like I got halfway through it and it didn't look like what I wanted to do, so I just scrapped it and then put it in a box and left it away. Like I'm pretty sure that I've got boxes of Jack's figures with like mold going around them, just of uncured Sculpey. It's ridiculous.
Oh man. Yeah, back in the day, everyone used like Super Sculpey.
Yeah,
Like when I first started.
well, that's also another thing. Learning, like you, as much as people don't want to spend money into it, but don't be afraid to invest in yourself. That's what I've learned for sure. Like pay $100 for like the proper tools, or just don't be afraid to go straight into the good tools. Don't go for the cheap dollar stuff because it shows in the quality of your work. That's for sure. Like even with my painting.
That's if you're painting, don't go for the cheap paints. Yes, they're there, and yes, you can get them, but I mean, and they're more widely available, but it just shows the whole difference in cheap paint, expensive paints, good sculpty, cheap sculpty, and like you say, get the right tools.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I've learned over the years is as much as I wanted to buy all the cheap stuff, it adds up eventually with all the experimentation. And don't be afraid to experiment either, because you'll find the good methods that you like to use and what you want to use and what you don't want to use. It all adds up. But I've learned to so we use epoxy sculpt. I've learned to do it in stages, not just want to do it all at once. Especially with Son of Havoc, I was sculpting over 2 weeks. I think.
Wow.
I didn't apply any paint until 3 days before submission.
Wow.
So it was just all priming and sculpting for sure. Yeah.
Man, yeah, that's crazy. Like, so when you're sculpting in stages, what stage do you usually like to start off with? Do you go like the boots up, or do you start up down from the top down?
Well, it's all about the visualization. Like you want to be able to see where you're getting. I've always wanted to see where I want the figure to be as quick as possible. So I think the best place to go with that is the head sculpt.
Yeah.
Because if you see who the character is, then you're kind of more into it. Like, oh, this is really good. I want to keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was talking about that the other day. I was like, man, it's funny how much a head sculpt like really makes or break the character.
Yeah. For sure.
I mean, as long as you can see a resemblance too. There's a lot of lenience on the side of resembling the character, and but it's one of those things. I mean, it's so tough because everyone's face is so different. But you definitely take an artist's approach to your work. I think I feel like when I'm looking at it, it's like a piece built up from the ground, and it's bringing back like the true custom figures of the old times. And I thought that was really cool to see because to me that was like out of workmanship, the category on our scorecard. Like I don't think there's anyone that beats you. I just feel like to me, if you look at the definition of that, it encompasses what you've done, and I think that actually really inspired the next round. Which if they hate it, I was so inspired by your work, man. That when I seen that, I was like, let's do something where they actually have to like sculpt a lot and actually do some heavy surgery, because I think when you're looking at this like a Ink Master sort of competition. We have a tattoo show here in the U.S. that's Ink Master.
Yeah.
And Dave Navarro hosts it, even though he's not a tattoo artist. But it works out with the dynamic, and it's really good to see kind of like what the extent of someone's capabilities are. And man, you were so well rounded. I thought that the way your figure turned out, it was one where I know like Matt Cross himself has never worn the Son of Havoc attire without his mask, at least like wrestled with it. But it would be so cool.
Yeah.
And like for me, like the boots on Son of Havoc were such a stickler thing that on previous customs I never seen, and I was like, oh man, they should use these Matador boots. Those were the ones I was going to use because I planned for a series of 3. But when I seen yours, I was so pleasantly surprised because you killed it. Like you absolutely put the middle seam right in there, the side laces, and even took the factory one step beyond. And I was telling my wife, I was like, Nick's Son of Havoc is better than mine. Like man, he's actually took the time to sculpt the bands. You took the time to sculpt the bands. You took the time to do the bodies, and if it was feasible or financially responsible for me to take that same process in all of my Son of Havocs, I for damn sure would, man, because it was so great. It was an amazing figure.
Oh, thanks. Well, that's the luxury of doing just the one of them. You can just go all out and just demolish it if you can. I think I was telling both of you guys, like, my style is definitely inspired by that of, like, some of the older school customizers, like Famous J and Roman Almighty. Like, I used to stalk their photo bucket accounts. Like, I'd try find all the figures that they didn't share, but they had hidden in their albums.
Yeah.
I saved every.
Man, that reminds me of the old days.
Yeah. The custom forum is dropped off completely in the last 6 or so years, and I probably declined in my interest in wrestling figures as well.
Right.
But then, when I came across the Facebook Wrestling Customs 101, that definitely, along with the other 2 factors, like that definitely dragged me in. Like the custom, like the making your own toy is what tickles my fancy with figures. It's just awesome.
Right. I mean,
I
it's
think
like
Mad Reaper's right. You treat yours more like a piece of art, then a lot of people just kind of rush through and they want to get the custom done. But you take the time to actually, make it look like a piece of art, and you take the time and the effort, and you do the little things that a lot of people ignore, like the boots. A lot of people just throw on whatever boots, but you took the time to do it right, and that really shows, and that's good because that's every custom you do, that's your name out there. So.
Yeah, for sure. Like my Instagram account, we were told to make that for uni, just trying to branch out, and like they're trying to teach us to make contacts. So that's why my Instagram account started so small. Like I think I had 10 posts before I started with the wrestling figures.
Wow.
I didn't have any interest in using one, but we just had to pass the assignment basically.
Oh really?
So, but yeah. And then when you guys were asking about references and stuff, I was crapping myself because I had nothing to show. So I had to quickly whip up a few things and chuck it in there.
That's hilarious. That's awesome, man.
Awesome.
Oh, I mean, like I think in the way that it comes out from a need, like some customizers get into the purely purely just to try to make a profit and sell a bunch of customs and make money, which I mean they can. If they do that, it's like more power to them, but it's not necessarily that's not the purpose, and that's certainly not the reason you get into it. I think for a lot of the greats, it's a side effect, it's a side benefit, because people want your work. But I mean, you don't go into it seeking that. So I mean, for you, like the Instagram page and all of that, I think it's very similar because I was the same way. I mean, before I was doing customs, I was drawing again. I had an iPad, and instead of drawing digitally, which I was kind of getting into, I started drawing. So I ended up doing like a trade show, and people wanted me there to sell my prints. And then I was like, well, I better have Mad Reaper Studios, which it's like crazy though because you don't set out doing that, but that's a side effect.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, though, man, you got an amazing 6-scale collection there. I can tell you're a big Star Wars fan. Are you jumping? Which ones do you prefer more? Do you like 6 scale figures or do you like the wrestling figures?
At the moment, it's wrestling figures. There's
Let's see.
at the moment there's like
Oh man, Wonder Woman.
no, I saw that. That was awesome. Hang on, I'll see if we can show it. Oh, that was terrific. Hang on, can you see this as well?
Oh man, no way.
Oh wow.
So
That's
I think
Wonder
you've got-
Woman too. I want that figure, dude.
Yeah. Oh, I just bought a new sculpt as well for it because the sculpt wasn't terrific. So I bought one from Sean Dabbs, which I'm planning on painting eventually.
Yeah.
But that's another thing with the 6 figures. Like, there's always something you can tweak up, and then knowing you can do that is just even better.
Yeah.
It's like you see someone like do a figure, and you're like, oh, I reckon I could do that. I probably couldn't at one stage, but I've built to the stage where I can now, and it's so awesome having that skill level.
That's awesome.
It's great.
Yeah, that's what happened to me. I mean, I had a Batman Arkham Asylum figure, which my wife, but she was my girlfriend at the time, got me for Christmas. And I was like, oh man, I don't want to start collecting these guys. These are expensive figures. So that was my first one. And then I was like, started getting cooler ones. And I looked back and I was like, I loved the video game, but that figure was like not gritty enough for me. So I was like, I should like repaint him black and add battle damage. Because I'm a black guy. I don't like the blue Batman as much. So I ended up doing that, and then after that figure, I was like, it's pretty much like customizing again, But I did a lot of the painting effects, like the silver, the weathering, and some blood, and really grungied him up, and made him look like he walked through mud and stuff, and made the figure tell a story, which I know that is so possible through a lot of the painting effects, but I think that you have a very great paint style that I think. To me, it reminds me of being inspired by a 6-scale figure and the process of how one would go about painting a 6-scale figure. But you do it on a 7-inch scale. Tell us about what are some of your favorite tricks for like people who are looking at your work and are like, damn, I want to be able to paint like that. Because if you looked at all of the figures, I know there's a lot of people that favor that stock factory finish. But the reality of it is, like, when you're looking at what's good, the stock factory skin tones, like, leave a lot to be desired. And your skin tone stood out as another level above the rest of the skin tones. Why is that? And what has kind of been your inspiration in getting better at painting? Specifically the skin tone, because that's really what I've seen in your figure.
You just asked them 6 questions in one statement.
I know.
I'll try and answer them all in one lot. Yeah, well, that's torn me up recently. I'm working on a Cody Rhodes from Wrestle Kingdom. And I've got him on, I currently have the plan of doing it on just a stock torso. But every time I see it, I just want to paint the skin tone because I want to have a particular style to my name, so I reckon that would be kind of unique.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it doesn't go with the rest of the figures that I have.
For sure.
Wait, it's not going to work. Oh, no. But,
Man.
there's a whole wall there. If
Yeah,
you can see
ton.
that. Whoops. But yeah, I've got all those there. And knowing that you have one figure what's so, like, with the skin tone and everything, and the rest is all stock, it kind of messes with me a little bit. Kind of pisses me off. But, yeah, but then at the same time, working on a figure knowing you could make the skin tone, make it look spectacular, but it's going to mess that up. I'm in 2 minds at the moment, trying to work on that.
That's exactly. I mean, and I hear you. I think as far as when you're looking at skin tones, it's crazy because once you start making exceptions for yourself, you're like inclined to just decrease in quality, And when you're looking at the evolution of wrestling figures from like Jax, and for them being like, we're gonna have really badass head scans, we'll start using some body molds. People won't really care. Till like Mattel, to where they have really good scans overall, but none of them are like that picture perfect likeness anymore, or and they're still reusing.
Those scans have gone down quite a bit,
right?
Absolutely.
And they're still reusing a lot of the same bodies. It's funny though, like when you're looking at what level you're on, people are looking at these figures and are like, okay, I'm going to paint on my wrist tape, paint it a solid color, like that's acceptable. That's what that's what Mattel does. But you're looking
Yeah.
at it from the point of view where, like, I'm going to sculpt the wrist tape because it does have a dimension to it, and I'm going to make it paintable. But once you, like, decide for yourself that even the wrist tape has to be sculpted, it is like it's like a tunnel to Wonderland, man, where you got like no option of turning back, because if you mean that the wrist tape means something, your torso better be reflective of that. Maybe you think that he should have nipples, and you have to do that with the knee pads potentially, and they're just you can see so many places to where you can make it better. And I think that's what was really crazy about your submission, is that you entered a Son of Havoc, which I was like, man, that's going to be crazy. And you delivered a Son of Havoc that was phenomenal and absolutely.
But that's a good point. You
clean.
can make figures better that way, or, as you pointed out, you can also skip corners, and take shortcuts and things, and that's what a lot of people do. Like with the boots, a lot of people just use the regular boots, and that's okay for them, whereas obviously he didn't. He chose to go all out and everything, and that's a luxury that is nice to have when you can just do one and just do everything. Absolutely. And all the little details, like you said, you sculpt the wrist tape, and yeah, it was just a great figure.
Yeah, it was just like it was a continuing effect. Like, I was filling in the holes for the pegs and the arms, and then I got to a stage like I was sculpting the mask and wanted to do the eye detail, and then thought, why don't I do the stitching around the mask?
Yeah.
And then it just kept going and going and going. But then that's just from inspiration and looking at the previous customizers, like I was showing you, Reaper, the Chinese chicken.
Yeah, no,
Like,
man, that was amazing. Like, we need to show some of that work, because to me it was inspiring for me, and it really dictated like a lot of my style. Like, I put a lot of effort into my current pieces, and if you look at like Alistair Black and whatnot, but like, could I go further? Like, once I seen that, I'm like, hell yeah, I could. Like, I could totally make a more realistic torso. I could go and sculpt the tape on the wrist. I can really go crazy with the hair, and and when I'm looking at them, I see that, and it's so crazy because when I was a kid, I was like against more detail for the reason of you associate detail with articulation or the lack thereof. And nowadays, you can have detail and articulation, and it was really inspiring for me.
Yeah, no.
MDTs, damn these, and yeah, and to me, like, that's what's really fun about making customs is to me is like to be able to replicate a wrestler. But to me, when you sent me that file of a lot of work in progress pictures, to me, man, I felt the same way about it, because I love watching that whole progression of pretty much of a work from scratch, completely taking it above what the creators ever had intended it to. And to me, that's what real art is, and it really opens it up to a new level of expressing it. Maybe
Sure.
we'll
That's
have
why I
to
tell
do it.
everyone to send work in progress pictures, because it can only make us appreciate everything you did that much more. There's no disadvantages to doing it, so I recommend it. We don't require it, but I think the more work in progress pictures, the better, because you go through like the pictures that you sent us, and you can see all the details and the sculpts and everything. So absolutely.
That's what I'm hoping. Like, the more that I post them, maybe they'll inspire other people to post them as well.
Yeah.
And then it'll just be a continuing like circle around. Like, I'll inspire someone, they'll inspire me by just seeing their whip pics. So,
And the truth of it is too, it's tied to confidence, I think, like, and not in a bad way. I don't want to say someone who doesn't post like work in progress pictures isn't confident, but I do think that there's a level of like false proprietorship in a lot of this hobby, where there's like people that think like they're the first to ever create a recipe and they're gonna hold on to it for dear life, and then there's others like me. Like, if you're a douche and you're asking me for the millionth time, and out of context, like, I'll blow you off, because I do it to respect. But I mean, for the most part, I think that there's a lot of man, I just completely lost my train of thought. happens again.
Yeah, yeah, I feel you there. I get that every now and then.
Man, either way. I got sidetracked with a bunch of people running, like, asking on Instagram, and they get really annoying, and then you're like, man, what the hell? Like, what formula is that? So there's a lot of people that are hidden about it, but when you post something that is new, like I started using the Devon torso, you should be confident about, like, if someone's going to copy that, they better step it up to your level, and if not, it's like, it is a community. You know, there's a level of, like, who really cares if what they see, what I'm working with. Like, at the end of the day, custom figures existed so that each person could have their own wrestling figure. That the big companies never made. Not necessarily so that you can get rich and retire off of it, because you won't. Like, making customs doesn't make a lot of money, unless you go through as much work as like Nick did. And I'd love to like challenge myself to do that. But I can tell you, like, if people think my prices are expensive now, like, they haven't seen anything, because that's a whole nother level.
Exactly.
But there are levels to this. You know, that's where I was going. Yeah. I got my memory back.
If you're gonna put that much time into a figure, you definitely want to get your money's worth.
Right.
You're gonna set your standard. There's no point giving it away for $60 or so when you know you've spent probably like $200 or $250 worth of effort on it.
Right.
Just degrading it. Yeah.
Right, and I mean, you shouldn't even be selling until your work is ready enough to. That I think. It takes some maturity to sell, and I'm speaking like it also helps selling too young and then realizing that your work is shit, and then like getting older and then being like, my work was shit. Like, that was my experience, you know. Like, I mean, in hindsight, I had a lot of customers, and my work isn't bad. Like, I would definitely be amateur worthy like nowadays if someone started posting, but you could see potential in it. But like, to me now, I'm like, man, like, I would never have bought it. HBK for myself for like $120 when I was like 13, as opposed to like what it is now. But the figure game was completely different back then too, because you had customizers like Brian Beatty, who was one of my big inspirations, who would make a lot of post customs, do the carding, back when Photoshop was really primitive, and post these figures on eBay and get like 700, 800, 600, all these huge figures for them, but it's because he elevated them into works of art and not just a custom action figure. Like, who's going to be playing with a figure that's $800? You know what I mean? And it's crazy to me that I can still sell a Conor McGregor action figure for as much as one of the 6-scale figures are, and we think that's expensive. You know, like, I collect 6-scale figures, and I'm like, man, $250. The figure better look exactly freaking like this person, because it's ridiculous. But it's a custom. Yeah, sure. It's different. Like it's different.
Yeah, and like really Hot Toys figures cost me like close to $400 after the currency exchange rates. It's ridiculous.
Oh man!
So like, if it's not perfect, you're gonna be pissed off. But
yeah, I know.
Your else your black's a steal, because for all the time and effort you put into that, you know, you should charge them a hell of a lot more. So,
for sure.
But people, I mean, because you got to think of all the details it puts into that and everything. And then people say it's too expensive. Well, break it down. Look at the time I put into it. Look at the parts that I have to have for it, you know, and the effort that goes into it. So, yeah. Get what you pay for. If you want a cheap figure, you can go do that. There's a ton of people who, you know, go off there and make figures. But if you want good quality work, then you're going to have to pay a little more. It's just the way it goes. I mean,
that was half the reason I started customizing when I was little. I used to want particular figures and didn't want to spend boatloads of money for it. So I thought, why not just get into it myself?
For sure.
Yeah, it's taken maybe like 10 years or so to get to this point, but I reckon the ride's been incredible. The learning curve is awesome.
Yeah, what was crazy for me is like I even started first. I fell in love with wrestling by flipping through the TV. I was watching TV with my dad. I was like, I want to say like 7. 6, 7. It was like 96. I think 96, 97, around there. WCW, and I seen Sting like from the Raptors, like when before he fought Hulk Hogan at Starrcade. And so I was like, man, who's this guy? Like, I was like, keep it on the channel. And from that night, I watched the wrestling, and I was like, man, I wanted to make a ring. So I tried to tell my dad we need to build a ring. And that was like probably right as the bone crunching action figures were coming out. But I had a couple old Hasbros from like garage sales, and I was only like 7, so I didn't know any of the wrestlers. But I had a Demolition Smash, and the first thing I did was like put whiteout on his face to make it into Sting. And I'm like, man, that was like 20 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
And not that I've done it continuously since. Like, there's no way. I'd be amazing. Like, yeah. So there was a big gap in between, but it was like that long in the making. You know, it's crazy to see what inspires you to get started.
Yeah, for sure.
But
That's awesome.
yeah, so like the other thing we wanted to talk about on this episode was real quick, roll out the gift of the gods, and we'll be talking to Beyondo later this week, and we'll be telling him the same thing. But the gift of the gods for this season, which is sorry if this seems like a weird segue for you, Nick, but for our listeners, this is important because Nick's going to actually be competing in the gift of the gods. We hope so. I think you'll be up for the challenge. What the gift of the gods was Joey started at Showstopper last season as a comeback round. Like, what do the people that get eliminated do? Because, again, we had great customs in the first round that ended up getting eliminated. So, theorized about having a comeback round, like a sort of Royal Rumble of sorts, to determine a contender coming back. Us being Lucha Underground fans, recognize the gift of the gods championship, which is essentially like a Money in the Bank type style thing, and so we structured the gift of the gods. So last year, our gift of the gods tournament was a diva, and we actually had a professional and an amateur bracket last year, and actually a lot of the amateurs who even submitted, even like Ian Hinosa's Ember Moon was a great figure, so they really brought it up, and Will had a great figure. You know, with the shirt, cloth goods, and the blood, and really took it to the 10th level because we had an extra week or two, I think. So, that being said, we're going to announce it now, what the deadline, I guess, the deadline for the gift of the gods. But the important part of this is that although it's due after the next round will end, the people that are eliminated this next coming round here can join. The caveat to that is, of course, that they don't have as much time as the people who were eliminated the first session. But the key to this is that it's all optional. Like, if you're out and you're like, there's no way, it's optional to you. So you're going to be like, you don't want to do it. But we encourage you to do it because it's literally, all it takes is one custom. Besides for this. So it's 12th today. By the time this releases, it'll be the 16th, 17th. That gives us...
say to everybody.
That means our next round is supposed to be done the 25th, right? So that would put
we called it amateur night.
So that would put the next round in at 1, 2, 3. Be done the 22nd. So it'll be done the 22nd, or let's go. Because the 22nd will be here. Sorry, guys. I'll edit this out. But I'm trying to figure out how many steps it takes to get to the finale. 1, 2. Okay. So it needs to be done by the 22nd. Okay, so on Friday the 13th. Hell yeah. April, Friday the 13th. It's going to be due. That won't leave too many weeks for the people that just get eliminated here, but it will leave 2 weeks. And if you really want back in, then you can do it. But it's going to be a tag team. And the customizer needs to...
team, but it has to be matching tag teams.
Right,
yeah.
Matching
designs
tag
have
teams.
to be similar on the tights and all that. They don't have to be exactly the same, but similar, so matching tag teams, absolutely.
And they have to be in... what was I going to say? Tag team... You hit it on a great point. They have to be matching. They have to match the attire. You have to do both figures, just for the clarification of that. Both figures, which just means like you can't do Marty Jannetty from the singles era, not that you want to, and a Sean from the singles era. You'd have to do the Rockers. For example. So that being said, let us know what you guys are going to pick. Everyone who's been eliminated, everyone who continues to be. It's not really a first come, first serve thing, but go crazy with it. Go nuts. Like, if it was me, I'd be making bushwhackers, or not bushwhackers, Can't think today. Not head shrinkers. The other weird ones. Headbangers. There we go. All right.
Right.
Pat, I'm taking you in. Cut me off.
All right. So, as we announced, Gift of the Gods. Matching tag teams. Attires have to match, and you have to do both figures. That is key and important because I know we will get hit up 1,000 times on social media, people asking that question. So we're repeating that right now. Thank you for... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
That's right. When you say matching attires, do you mean like as a team? So Sean Benjamin, Chad Gable have like matching attires. So, yeah, okay.
Like corresponding attires, but from when they were teamed together.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, cool. Sweet.
So you can't do like Bret Hart from one era and then, someone else from the other era.
Yeah.
So, all right, thank you, Nick, for coming on our wonderful show. We've enjoyed talking to you very, very much. We hope to have you on a future episode. Hope you'll be in the Gift of the Gods tournament because we enjoy your work. I am glued to your Instagram account, waiting for you to release something else. So quit being lazy, release something else.
But let's tell everyone where they could follow Nick at because, and if you maybe want to share your Flickr too, because I think that it's a treasure trove of work in progress pictures. But go ahead, tell people where they can follow you at on Instagram.
You can find me on Instagram as under Nick's Custom Toys.
Underscored like that. Nick,
underscore like that.
Customs, toys.
Awesome.
I'll take the bio. I'll update the bio and chuck the Flickr account in that so people can check that out when they want.
Cool, yeah.
I'm also trying to put together a Google Drive of past customizers.
That would be awesome, man. I mean...
Yeah. It's like I showed Mad Reaper, so all the ones I've collated over, the last 5-6 years, I'm hoping to put that all in the Google Drive, and if you want to see it or maybe contribute to it.
Contribute. I know I got a lot of old Beatty pictures. I wish I had my old pictures, like just to see how far I've come. Not that they'd be good, but it's crazy, man. 'Cause, when I was looking through your thing, like it's like Chinese chicken. You had a lot of like crazy customizers, and I saved a lot of pictures because I was like, this is inspiring for me, man. So it really helps to see and get a lot of the legends. And even in one of those old forum posts, as I was searching for more of that work, Beyondo was mentioned. So it goes to explain like how long Beyondo's been around.
Amazing Beyondo.
The amazing Beyondo. There's like Beyondo might have had a BCA custom back then too. So like that's how far away people were talking, and that's the spectrum of experience we have in this tournament. So we're really thankful. We're really glad that you joined us on here. I know Pat was like, hey, who should we have on? I was like, we got to have Nick on and talk about that Son of Havoc because to me, that was my favorite custom of the first round, no doubt. Like, and if it could have made more sense on the scorecard, I would have. But to me, it was absolutely my favorite figure. It brought back to me what customs are, and it was cool because I was making a Son of Havoc at the same time, and I was like, man, his arms kick ass, his boots kick ass. What a great figure! His torso, his head, like the beard, the Matt Cross head, and I can't believe it's Neville, considering the fact that Neville has sculpted hair. You made that Neville hair not sculpted.
I would have never guessed that in a million years.
Great work, man. Yeah,
thanks, man.
I'm really excited to see what's to come from you, and I know we got some projects working together, and it's gonna be really exciting too. But man, we really hope to see you on the Gift of the Gods, because I know you got a chance for sure. Like if there's someone I want to see in the finale, it's you, without a doubt.
For sure. I had a great time in the first round, making friends with Bubble and Squeak. He's a great guy, and he deserved all the success he got from it. That raid was fantastic.
He brought it.
I know he had some trouble with it. Yeah, I know he had some trouble with this bracket, but I think he's turned back around and he's guided himself, push through, and keep going on.
I know I'm really excited.
Yeah, he's done some work in progress pictures. They were
awesome.
Well, I know I was thinking the other day here. I was like wondering what I would do Oh, it's poor network connection. I was thinking the other day here, like what I would do if it was me, and just on a quick last side note, I was like, man, Sting with his old mullet is perfect for a Captain Power or Captain Planet. Like, why doesn't someone do Sting as Captain Planet with the green mullet and like this badass tone with a big globe? And man, he'd be epic.
I was trying to think of ideas if I was to be in it. I was thinking like a Kenny Omega, but mixed with Metallo from Superman.
Oh, that'd be sweet too. Yeah. Or like, well, man, yeah, there's a lot of great ones.
I was even tempted to
You could do Mickey James as Wonder Woman.
Opportunities for sculpting. Yeah, for sure.
That would be awesome.
I'd be looking for anything with as much sculpting as possible. It's like if you're the sculpt the Terminator. Or,
yeah. And it'd be cool to see someone like actually mesh parts from other lines together. You know, like a Terminator leg, or you know, like that type of thing into the wrestling figure. I think I'm cutting out. There we go.
Yeah.
Cool.
For sure. That would be gross.
Well, either way, we'll wrap it up.
Hello and welcome back. That was Nick from Nick's Custom Toys. What a great guy to talk to, and what a collection he has. I'm impressed.
I'm really impressed too. That was a great. Nick was one of my favorite customizers coming out of this. I never really was too aware of him prior to that, but like I said, great work, really inspiring customizer, really someone who pushes it to the max, and was glad to have him on the show despite a losing effort to Bubble and Squeak. It was really great though. It was really close.
Any other, first round, he would have definitely advanced easily, and it's just he drew a very tough opponent, and that unfortunately happens on our show a lot, where you get knocked out in the first round, even though you hit a near home run. So, also coming up next, we have the great, the amazing Beyondo. So stay tuned.
So stay tuned. We're going to jump into Beyondo, but around that same mind frame, we are looking at tweaking a scoring system for future seasons. Maybe something more like a golf tournament, something that allows a lot more flexibility for in the event of no-shows. So if you have any ideas, let us know. Really, we're open to hearing anything and everything.
Comment below.
Excuse me. So, yeah, that's what we're working on. We're definitely open to that. So please help us make this better and a more fun and more fair experience, more competitive. That's what we like at the end of the day. So we're going to drop some breaking news again here with Beyondo. So this is the we're going to cut into it now. So.
All right.
Hello, we are here with the amazing Beyondo, recently upgraded from Great Beyondo to Amazing.
Amazing.
Thank you. I believe it was you that came up with that.
Yeah. That was Pat.
So, we want to break some news here for everyone who's listening.
Yep.
We are going to have some amateur contests after this contest concludes. And we will have captains. And the amazing Beyondo has graciously agreed to be one of those captains. So, we are happy to have him on board.
Yes, hello guys.
Yeah. Which, you cut right to the point there, Pat.
Absolutely.
Yeah, are we done?
Yeah.
Wrap it up?
Oh, okay. Well, I guess that explains the build-up. No, but I think what was really cool is that, Beyondo was here in the first season and is here in the second season. But what was really cool, since he is considered a legend amongst customizers, and with all the experience, I thought it would be cool coming from like the UFC, being a fan of the UFC and how they have their reality TV show. I thought it'd be cool to have that for customizers, because what we seen in the first round was a lot of amateurs couldn't necessarily finish it or were really struggling with it, whereas you really seen the left side of the bracket just work through it because they knew what they wanted to do on the pros. The amateurs, you could see they wanted a little more guidance. So I was talking to Pat. I was like,
your first time, it's hard to manage your time or know.
Right.
I mean, even on the last round of the tournament, I think you said in the Mad Reaper, you said you thought I was a bit rushed. And it was true. At the end, when I sprayed my final thing down, I had left the spray out in the cold, and it had gotten all chunky, and it messed the whole... I had to do a whole repaint of the mask in like 20 minutes.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Yeah, so I've made a million customs, and you never know how long you're going to spend on each part.
That mask was flawless, though, still. I would have never noticed it, even on your mask. I was like, man.
Oh, thank you.
That was such a beautiful figure. I was so stoked to see that, because I'm such a fan of Psychosis. I was like, oh, man. Dogcrack made him after the tournament last time, I think, right?
Yes.
Oh, no. It was for the tournament. Psychosis for ECW.
Yeah, it was orange and white, I think.
Yeah. Oh, that one was so sweet, too. But I always remembered him from his WCW kind of era, you know. But, yeah, so we were super stoked, and that's what we thought, like, you would be able to provide some insight into some of the amateurs and kind of be their coach, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, man, yeah.
Oh, who made that?
What a beast.
This is by far my favorite one, though.
Yeah.
Man, Glacier's so legendary.
It's an older one.
Yeah,
I think I'm still getting the ring rust, the brush rust off.
I get, you know,
better than I do now.
It was weird, and it was weird because I remember saying that last time too. I was like, "This is the Beyondo I was excited to see or waiting for on the first one," and I thought Ultimo Dragon was just as good, though. I mean,
Kurt Angle before the entrance.
I don't think it was as good as my last one.
Right, but it's like it's one of those things where you're
only as good as your last custom.
Your brush rust was non-existent. I mean, not noticeable is what I'm saying.
It takes a little bit of an adjustment because I used to work on those Ruthless Aggression and Bone Crunching Action all the time, and with Mattel, you know, they've got so much more articulation. It kind of takes just a little bit of a learning curve. Yeah,
I know. When I jumped to Mattel too, that was like I had missed. I had pretty much ended on Deluxe Aggression or Ruthless Aggression. And before they did the ab articulation, I had already kind of paused from collecting. And when I came back, I was like, oh man, that's a challenge. Because I was like looking for prices. It's like a little over a year ago. And I was like see like what I could make customs out of. And I didn't even know the difference between basics and elites. But like that's how long I had to catch up. But I mean, I still kept familiar with all the wrestlers. So it helped. Right. But yeah.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I started with basics because they were closer to the Ruthless Aggression.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and I mean, when I was trying to get some of the parts, it can be so expensive.
Oh, man, yeah. For elites, too, especially. It's like $20 a pop. And
well, for that Psychosis, I was trying to get some Evan Bourne boots.
Oh, yeah.
Looking on eBay, I couldn't find one for less than $50.
Oh, man.
Wow. So I ended up getting a basic one and just kind of...
That's actually what I do, too. Yeah, I'm doing a Darewolf, or I was. I don't know about the future of my Lucha line anymore, but I was doing a Darewolf, and I was like prototyping one, and the Elite's boots of whatever his name was in WWE, Justin Gabriel, his boots don't have those little flaps. He's kind of got like those Aries flaps on the side of his kick pads, and his elites don't have them, but his basics do. So I was like, I like that feature so much that I'm just gonna adapt the basic boot to the elites because it needs to have those flaps. If your wrestler has those flaps, you want to see it at all costs. You know,
and it's not that hard to adjust it to just swap some pegs on there.
It adds up though. I mean, like you need this torso, those arms, these legs, those boots. You know, this head scan
has to be the right.
He's got
matching skin tones.
Matching skin tones. That's a big one. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, Mad Reaper. I only heard a little bit about the your line of figures that you were going to try to get going.
Yeah. So I can't I don't want to spill all the details yet so far, but what happened so far was. It's like on my Instagram, there was a producer for Lucha Underground that commented and was like, "Dude, these figures are amazing. I'm actually a writer producer for Lucha Underground. Amazing work." And so I replied, I was like, "Hey, thanks, man. It means a lot coming from you." And then I was like, "I'll throw it out there," kind of like half kidding but half not, because I was always kind of thinking about like starting a toy company. So I've always thought about that. Like if I could get enough funds to make the initial order, like I know the rest, the structure of it. So I was always kicking.
Wouldn't be manufacturing it, or
no,
you can't just make a million customs.
Right? No, it would be taking it over to China.
Yeah.
So like that's what I'll have to do. But I was just joking. I was like, I'd love to take a crack at the official ones. And then he's like, send me a message. So I sent him a message. I started talking. I was like, well, I can't do the customs because I mean, not only is that Mattel's stuff, I can't make that many of them. And I'd want to do it like how Mad Reaper would do it, like better, like more like McFarlane meets Mattel, kind of, like more realistic, but not sacrificing on the articulation. So he's like, well, I'll pass your information along. I talked to, then like a couple days later, a higher up executive talked to me, and so I got some work to do, but I'm hoping to. After the last round, actually, that Nick Johnson that did the
great figure, by the way.
That did the I'm super. I can't wait to do a meal too.
Meal masters.
Meal's one where I hope I hope would sell. I'd like meal, but
kind of every customized dream, like
right.
I think like, always it's always not really possible in your head, but you're like, I love making figures. It would be so cool if I could just do it.
Right.
That would be awesome if you did.
And that's exactly where I was coming from. I was like, man, ever since I've been making customs, it was funny because even the second go around, I've pretty much been running kind of like that because I make 3 at a time. The sacrifice to that is that not all of them are as good as I could if I could go batshit crazy and just copy that one. Like the way you do your work, the way like Nick did his Son of Havoc, like they're sculpted top to bottom. And remember, like the Max Moon from the first season, like they're sculpted from top to bottom, like the old days. And I've loved to do that. And back in the day, like when pose customs were kind of in style, I would do that with Hayabusa. So I've always loved the wrestlers with that kind of pants. And I was reading an art, like not to go off topic, but I was reading an article about Pentagon Jr. saying when they were coming up with his costume design, he didn't really know what to do with his character, and he's like, well, my favorite wrestler is like Hayabusa, and like I can't remember. He named another one, but it really lent to itself to the whole mask and the design and the pants and everything. So, going back to it though, I mean, I was just super stoked because I've always wanted to make figures, and now it's like, dude, I'd be able to if it works out right. And the internet, I think, is what has helped everything. Like Toys R Us dying is brutal and it sucks, but it's like an inevitability because they failed to adapt and latch on to Amazon. Like Amazon wouldn't have gotten so big if they would have been like, hey, Amazon, let's partner and do toys.
Sure, yeah.
Like, no, we want our store, and brick and mortar's dying, so
yeah. And it's not like you'd ever be able to. I mean, not never, but you'd have to start online,
right? And it just wouldn't make sense to do it, otherwise. And I was like, if I could have like distribution on as soon as they go on my studio, not my studio, like it's going to be Mad Reaper Toys. As soon as they go under my company's website, we'll hopefully get a lot of pre-orders, so that way I can start on the second guy, and I'm like, oh man, and it's not someone I've made a custom of yet, so I'm stoked because I think he needs a cool figure. But it's cool to like vision that.
Yeah, I'll definitely be ordering.
Oh man, I mean, hey, if I get like clearance to go ahead and kind of spread out and do other things, like I've envisioned it in my head how far, and I want
just take it right now.
Yeah,
take it.
And I want help from my fellow customizers. Like I just think it'd be so cool because it is a process, and like the Young Bucks are doing to indie wrestling, kind of like the indie scene is big. Like, I think independent toy companies are going to be the next big thing. Like, Mattel, Hasbro, like, they're all taking a shit, and same with Jax, but, like, Sideshow Collectibles isn't. And it's because, like, the kids that love those toys grew up. Like, my nephew doesn't play with action figures, and it's because, like, they never grew up seeing the commercials on the TV. So, like, selling an action figure in 2018, you just need to know your demographic, and my demographic is, like, myself. So,
yeah, older people.
Right.
Yeah,
It all works out.
Like, stuff that hits all the, like, nerdgasm boxes. Like, I love the Funko Kenner style. Like, I love the Kenner. I won an auction of, like, 12 Shadow figures from Kenner that, like, absolutely sucked. But, like, I was like, man, it reminded me of the time when Kenner was such a beast and they had all the... It was easy to sculpt a figure. I was like, so I had to have it. But, nonetheless.
Yeah, that's so cool. I mean, especially with... you know, people want customs because nobody's making. They can't make a guy for a year after they debut,
right?
And they can't make people from certain companies. But you know, when it takes a week to make a custom, and you can make maybe $100 on it,
right?
It's just. But if you can do it on a large scale, that would be awesome.
Right, and that's the thing. It's like I know. I want them to be better than Mattel. Like I've always kind of got, like. The paint. I mean, Mattel does their job well. They do their job great. Like I think their figures are perfect. Like for the WWE figures, I wish I grew up with them. But like, I want mine a little more like detailed and gritty. And it's not to say they're doing anything wrong, but I just want to take it that extra level. Like, what if the sculptor at Mattel could have an extra 2 weeks to refine that figure, and they didn't care about reusing molds? And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to I'm going to shoot my wad like. I'm never going to have to use another mold over again. But I think that's why Hasbro was so badass. You know what I mean? Like, and a lot of those figures that we loved were so cool because they weren't scared to do it.
Original sculpting.
Yeah, and
some of the rockers have those little butt belts.
Yeah.
Mold.
Yeah. And
I think the market's absolutely right for it because look at WWE. There are people who've been on WWE TV forever now, and they don't have a figure. Or, you know, you're getting your 600th John Cena, and you know, so.
Right.
Yeah. But the Lucha Underground is an underground market. I think that it's really ripe for merchandise. I think that's what was wrong with the first season.
The whole independent scene.
Yeah.
You could spread out.
They didn't have the merchandise, and that's why they got in the
I could envision myself as a pro wrestling tease of action figures for wrestlers, and instead of doing like spending the thousands for the head scans, I could outsource it to customizers, and we could do the heads. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And I wonder if you could even get individual contracts with, you know, where you didn't have to go through a company. You could just make a.
They did, yeah. The Figures Toy Company does that.
They just straight up license it right from the person,
from the wrestler. Yeah. So. I remember, this is like super confidential too, but I'm sure he doesn't watch the podcast. But as soon as Cage's figure came out, he messaged me and was like, look at this piece of shit. He was like, it looks like a Ken doll. And I was like, oh man, yeah, it looks pretty bad.
It's cool that it's you, but like, that's like you.
I was like, it's cool that it's you,
but time come to me.
They used a small torso for you, and that doesn't make sense, man. I don't But so I was kind of in the works of actually doing some. I was in the works of doing some Cage figures, and I mean I still am in the works of doing some Cage figures for the Indies, and doing a set of those with his other GMSI attire or whatever. But now maybe I'll be able to do it for Lucha Underground, so it'll be cool.
That'd be awesome.
But
I know how big a fan you guys are.
I know, it's like I just love that show. I don't know. It's just the storylines. I don't know. It's like I think wrestling's ridiculous, and when you know it's best when it's self-aware. Yeah, I like it when it's self-aware, like of its ridiculousness.
Well, like WWE, they like with 205 Live, they say, well, either we can have storylines or we can have wrestling. It's like, well, why can't we have both? You know, just integrate it and do it properly. And that's what
all wrestling is.
Right. Well, if you look back on the 90s, like the Hasbro era, that's exactly what it was. Like in hindsight, it was so aware of the fact that it wasn't serious, that it had fun with it. And I think that's what Lucha Underground does, and that's what the
And
wrestlers
put on
need.
some freaking insane matches.
Right? Well,
Mhm.
and every
When
single
they go to
figure,
war.
every single person there is so poetic. Like if this was the 80s and they were on shelves and kids were going to Toys R Us, they would be like, "Who the hell is this Dragon dude? Like he looks so badass."
Yeah.
Or Pentagon.
I don't
looked
even
at.
watch wrestling, but that guy's cool.
Right. Like they all look the cool. They have the coolest looking characters in wrestling, in my opinion. But I'm biased. Clearly, I'm wearing a Pentagon mask.
It's kind of like
I think we're all a little bit biased in that
wrestling is a
department.
soap opera. The
Right.
Lucha Underground is almost like a telenovela. It's
Right.
just so over the top. And
That's
you lost your
exactly.
memory and all that stuff.
And that's why, like Johnny Mundo, like, man, I'm such a fan of Johnny Mundo because he kicks so much ass. Because like he is that most over the top kind of character. Anyways, he's a rock star douche, you know. And
Yeah.
watching him on Lucha Underground blossom is like the coolest thing for me because I'm like, dude, Johnny Mundo's that, like, you know, he's doing what I think he's best at.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think he's a great actor too. You know, like I think he's got great mic skills. He's a complete package. I don't know why WWE would have ever let him go, but he didn't want to
Yeah.
sign.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Yeah,
Boone the Bounty Hunter right here.
yeah. That's what got me really excited. You know, I was like, at first, like when the opportunity presented itself, I was like, man, it's like a big, scary thing to do, but that's kind of like why I started. I was like, I wanted Lucha Underground figures, and like,
Yeah.
my figures sell. All my series sell out, and they're not cheap, and I'm not even affordable. Like, it's for collectors. My prices. If I could make a figure that's $35, like, imagine how many people would want that. Like, and I want to
Yeah.
be able to do that. You know what I mean? Like, the price has always been inextricably linked to the parts. Like,
Yeah.
but that's
cool.
Yeah, that's cool. I'll be like, hey, I'll have a figure in most houses. I don't know if I could beat you yet, but
Oh, I think you've passed me.
you are a showstopper, man. Your guys' libraries like are extensive.
Showstopper's a beast. I mean, he just cranks them out, and they're picture perfect and
Every day.
amazing.
Every day I go on Instagram and it's like, oh, we finished that one. And then 5 minutes later, oh, here's progress on my next one.
Well, did I tell you about? Did you hear? Oh no, you didn't, because it was just on the first part of this podcast, but they're edited together. But I was talking about how me and Nick were talking about like old custom, and he has this gallery. He's like, I shared with you this gallery of old customizers' work, since I know you like work in progress pictures too. And so I was checking that out, and they had some of the old school guys in there, like they had some of your work. They had the Chinese chicken, like H2 break hit or whatever. Like
Yeah.
some of those old
Tiny
old
Man.
guys.
Do you remember Tiny Man?
Yes, and him, and he had it on this Google Drive. But so I was like checking, and he's like, I never realized how inspired I was by Chinese chicken, and I feel like Chinese chicken was probably around after I stopped at first. And so like, but that was like 04, 05, so I don't know. But so I was trying to do some more research and check it out, because he did the sculpted wrist tape, and just
Yeah, the knee pads, the elbow pad. I got inspired by that.
such beautiful figures. So I was
Yeah.
checking it out, and they were talking about these old legends on the wrestling figs forum. And then someone's like, I even think Beyondo has a BCA on there. I'm like, in a talk amongst legends, you are an urban legend. And so, man, kudos to that. Like,
Yeah, I think I've just been around so long is the thing.
No, that is not it at all. Your work is amazing. That's why we
Thank you.
call you the Amazing Beyondo.
Amazing.
so we wanted to surprise you on the show. We wanted to get you on here. We wanted to announce you as the next coach, but we also wanted to officially, I know we've been teasing it, but to make you our first inductee of the Custom Underground Hall of Fame. We think, man, we want to build a what's the Greek word? Pantheon of customizing giants. And you are first amongst us. So
I'm super honored. I barely feel like I deserve it, but I'll gladly take it.
I think
you are the pillar which all future Hall of Famers will stand on. So,
well, I appreciate that very much. I'm honored.
And for us and we were honored for you to come out of retirement and take a chance on it, because I mean we sounded like we were ridiculous, and you were one of the first on board, and when people seen Beyondo was attached, they were like, it was like seeing Brad Pitt attached to a movie. So it helped with enrollment.
Must be the look.
It's the glacier. No.
It's just amazing that so many people had so much faith in us, and then we got a name like Beyondo on there, and they're like, "Beyondo's doing this? Oh, I want to be a part of this." And we're so grateful for everyone. We really appreciate all of our fans and everyone who's been in our contest and are in our contest and will in future be in our contest.
Well, I think everybody appreciates you guys. I mean, you guys you're here every week. You're putting this all together.
It's Pat. I mean, I'm putting it together, but it's Pat that we're here every week. It's that commitment.
You guys are great. It's such a great idea. It's like an updated, because we used to do this back in the day, like before YouTube and stuff, and
forums, pro boards.
Yeah, it's such a different. It's like an updated way of doing it. It's cool.
I'm super excited for what it has in store. I'm super excited for the coaching season, because you're going to be able to pick your team from the entrance of applicants. So we're hoping for like a 4-on-4, and we're hoping to do it like very combative style. It would be really cool to have it small enough to where you guys could pick the matchups against your teams, and at the end of the day, the coach that wins that round would get to pick the next matchup. And you'd be pretty much pitting against customizers trying to take each other out until one team has the champion left, and then we might have
a victory.
Then we might have a champion versus champion face off, but we haven't released the other coach yet.
Okay, yes. I feel like I might know who it is.
I feel like it's very familiar to you. Yes,
I think I might have been told, but
you probably know. I'm sure you know. Yeah, I think you've been told, but they don't know.
Yeah, I guess I kind of agreed to it blindly, so I know about as much as everyone else. There's going to be teams. Will the coaches be choosing like the theme or the?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
winner chooses.
Yeah. So we'll be choosing the theme, and pretty much building the team, but also being able to kind of see what we're hoping to have each amateur at least have. I mean, they've had to have done some customs, so you guys can see where their work needs to kind of improve, and kind of be that sounding board where a fighter has their coach in their corner. You're going to be able to say like, hey, I think we got to look at a different direction with this head scan, because it's starting to look like Tony Danza.
Got one more round.
You know what I mean? But I thought that would be cool then, because in the process you're actually making them better. But if we're able to kind of discuss that progression, hopefully customizers who are just watching it kind of get that rub off on the knowledge of where to increase and how to be better. Turn a competition into a little bit of a instruction too.
Yeah, that's cool.
And it'll be really cool. I'm excited for it. It's kind of a crazy idea.
Do you have excited for entrance?
Do we, Pat? I guess I would ask Pat.
I guess you haven't really announced it, so I guess people went to sign up.
We haven't really announced it yet, but
we have a lot of amateurs
good now. Yeah. And also, more breaking news: Beyondo has agreed to be on Team USA.
Yes. So the World Cup, we have Philippines. We're out here. Oh man, it's gonna be
and we'll get some countries going and be a good time.
Yeah, I guess we've got people from all over.
Yeah, what is the background on this, Pat? Because pretty much what happened is I woke up to text our message thread, and you and Showstopper had pretty much worked out. I thought was an amazing idea. I woke up, I was like, "Hey, that's pretty That's great.
Well, you were initially in the room, and I thought you were still in the chat because we have a private chat for judges, and I thought you were still in there. But you know, I never do this, but I did have a drink, and then I started laying out this plan. I just in season 1, I was thinking back to TNA where they used to have the World Cup. They had like a coach, and they picked up the different matchups, kind of like what we're doing with the amateurs. And I just thought it'd be really cool if we did that. And I started laying it out, and then Showstoppers started adding facts, and we just sort of paved it all out. And I think it's going to be a real good time.
Cool.
Defend your country.
Yeah, so we need some more on Team USA because Rocket Jabroni is considering himself
Traitor.
Team Philippines. So
okay.
Scribble, Showstopper, and Rocket Jabroni.
Ooh, that's a rough team.
Those guys are stacked. Yeah, I don't know what they're doing, man.
I still need to get my revenge on Rocco Jabroni. He knocked me out in the first round.
It was really funny because we were talking about this, and then, in our chat, and like a day later, Showstopper already had someone, and then Mad Reaper was recruiting, and then we're talking to Showstopper, and suddenly he has a whole team, and so...
Ringers. He brought in ringers.
Yeah.
Yes, he did. That's the definition of ringers. I agree.
Yeah, I think I was reading one of the messages, and it was like, oh, if Mad Reaper competes or something, and then Showstopper was like, oh, Mad Reaper would compete, and then it's like, I don't know how it turned into this international war, and it's coming.
It'd be awesome. I can't wait to see I can't wait to see what Showstopper when he has a bunch of time.
Oh man.
Cranks those out like factory, but
he is a factory. I was like, no one, like, we could literally do a Showstopper challenge and try to make one a day, and it's still probably it'd be a very low success rate. Myself.
Do you know what's scary? We've actually confirmed he's human with no extra arms. I mean, I just figured he had extra arms attached, and they were all working together. But we saw him on the show, so. Just an amazing guy, I guess.
He could have. Maybe he made a robot.
There you go. Maybe the robot works 24/7. Maybe he cloned himself, like in that movie with Michael Keaton.
Yeah,
he just kept cloning himself, and
they keep getting worse and worse. Though you start getting.
I wonder what we need to ask him what his like lineup process is, because I'm like I feel like. I don't have ADD, but I'm very like much all over the place. So I grab I'm working on like 8 at a time, man, and I can't only work on one. I can't be exclusive. Is the word. I run out of patience.
Well, that's a good method though, because then when this figure is drying, then you can go and do something on that figure, and then when that figure needs attention, you can just go. I think that's a good process.
That's what I try to do with just separate parts. Like I'll separate it. You do the boots while the boots are dry. You do the head.
That's the best way to paint too. I feel like now that I'm adapting my process in the past year is disassembling the whole figure and putting it together, painting.
What do you go for first, Beyondo? Are you like a head to toe or toes to head, or are you just what do you normally zoom in on first?
Oh, when I start painting, or when I decide to put it together.
Well, when you're customizing, just in general, what's the first thing you kind of look for?
I guess. I don't know. I guess anything that's a unique part. So like if the main thing is their mask, or if they've got some crazy boots, the first thing I'll do is be like, how am I going to make those boots?
And that's how I am too. Yeah.
Because if you can't figure that out, then you don't have any.
Yeah.
Once you get the boots, you're like, damn it.
That's how I am too.
That keeps you excited too, because you're like, oh, I did these boots, and these are really cool. Now I can do this. And
you can kind
do
of
the mask next, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard not to get inspired to start a new one, though. You'll be like 80% done, and you're like, I'm kind of sick of this one. What if I made that guy? Like, no, you got to focus.
Yeah, I don't have that discipline.
With the blinders.
I know, I need to. I was like sculpting yesterday, and I was sculpting one of my Alistair Black hairs, And then I was like looking, I was like, I finally should finish up that Kenny Omega. So then I did that Omega. And then I was like, I still got some clay left, so I might as well finish up my Matt Jackson head. And then I still had some left. So I was like, this is not good.
Stuck in a loop.
Yeah, but now I have like 8 heads ready for molding. So
nice.
That helps.
So you've got the molding thing down? I've never had the courage to start it.
Yeah, it was weird because what happened was I pretty much when I needed molding was so I made a little fan film. Actually, this is a weird story. So I made a little fan film, a Batman one, but I sculpted a mask. So this was like a couple years ago, 3 years ago or so. And I sculpted a mask, but I needed a way to replicate it because I wanted them hanging from the ceiling and like have all these white masks hanging around. So I was like, I should mold and cast that. Prior to that, like as a kid, I remember reading an article in like Toy Fair or like one of the old Customizer Coalition. I think one of their resources, they had a resource where a guy made a mold of a William Shatner Star Trek head to make a latex mask for a Halloween Jason Voorhees. And this was probably, man, I'm legit though, this was probably like 99. And so when this was going on, I was always like aware of how to kind of build a Lego stuff, but even that back in the day seemed so overwhelming. So I was like, I know a method exists. So I start getting kind of into like Batman collectibles and my Batman costume, like in my theater. And like not necessarily, this kind of goes along with it, but a lot of the mask makers are doing these molds. So I start like watching how they're doing the molds. So I'm like, okay, they make the Batman masks like that. Like those dudes sell those masks for like $300 and it's just a big cast. And but it's a beautiful one, you know. And so I made this guy, which is just a sculpted mask, very like, and then I just dry brushed all of them because there was like 50 of them. And you know, after that I was like getting back into customs. I was like, if I want to do a couple of them, I could just mold the head. So one of the YouTube videos is the best thing that I found, which is some dude casting his heads inside these Dixie cups, and he's a beast. And he just like has a little Dixie cup, talks about making the peg, but the materials, what I loved was watching the Batman makers. Smooth On is like, to me, like kind of like the Aves or Procreate of or like the Citadel, like the brand for that type of silicone and stuff. So Smooth On has a 2-pack, man, where they have a DVD, the mold release, the silicone, and the resin. Everything you needed, a starter kit. It's like $33, and I was like, hey, I'm in.
Yeah.
And that's where that's that 2-pack that I started with, and so I think.
Shut up and take my money.
If you ever wanted to get into it, you know, I think that Smooth On. I should put the link in the description for anyone else watching this though too. But like that is the best one-time thing to get into, and you can mess up. And the cool thing about the silicone is that it stretches and you can rip it apart if you completely mess it up. You know what I mean? Like nothing's damaged.
That's cool. Yeah, I've always just heard that like it's just takes too much work. There's too many flaws, but you feel like it's pretty smooth?
I feel like, yeah, the big thing is that there's a lot of flaws if you have the wrong resin, if you don't have a vacuum tank. So I keep my operation very small. I don't have a vacuum tank. So my resin is literally getting pounded on the table and you know, mixed around kind of like a roto mold, but it's being mixed around to try to wash the resin into all the cavities.
Right.
But I also have a very low viscosity resin, so like that Smooth On has it's a little more viscous than water, but it still gets in there without a vac. So you know, a couple knocks on the table, then there's a couple bubbles that come up, and typically I would say my like successful casting rate is like 85%. So like most of the time, if I have to just clean up some seams and you know, usually I always have to touch up like maybe an ear. The ears are usually tough, but then I just drill out the bottom of the neck, and then I use a Dremel and recreate the ball, like from from an inside. All of these are just completely inappropriate, and if you guys are watching this on mute, don't. But you
Which
literally
they can't hear because they're
use the Dremel inside the ball joint though, and like circle around without trying to expand the opening at first. And I found by doing that, I actually make a ball jointed head that actually works.
to smooth it.
You gotta really get in there and clean it up,
Get it there.
but not expand the opening because it's important that the head still
Mad
remains
Reaper,
tight to
you make
fit
the
on
most
the
innocent
peg
things sound horrible.
on the ball joint.
Go on.
It still needs to fit over the ball at the end of the day and be tight. So
I know what you mean.
But yeah, so it's worth it to me because I feel like I did one cool head, or I just have to do one cool head, and then I don't need to resculpt that head again.
Yeah, that's. Yeah, I wonder if you could do. Have you tried it with any other, not just heads? Like, could you do hands?
I've tried it with. This is a spoiler alert. I've tried it with this, so this was a weird thing. This is Braun Strowman's bottom leg.
Oh, okay.
And I like the mold of this. It's just a little too long, but this is, I think,
Thank goodness it wasn't his crotch.
would be a great one for.
That'd be a big one.
Yeah, that would be really bad. I like his pants for Sabu, so I'm making a Sabu, but I needed to make it a little shorter. So instead of ripping apart like my personal bronze stroke, because I didn't buy any bronze expensive enough as is, to use the bottom of the legs, I was molding it and casting it, and I think it would work with drilling out the hole and trying to fit in the peg, but you'd have to like, this resin is really good because it actually expands in heat, so I feel like it'd make a tight one, but I've seen some resins that are like much harder and like they're not molding, they're not doing anything. So
Right.
yeah, I've tried other parts, but I don't think you could get too crazy without your mold getting too crazy. And there's a lot of those molds that have like gates where if they're like molding a complex curve, you're like in the clay, you're drawing a line so that resin could run, to the other areas to make sure it's got no bubbles. And all my molds are not that difficult. They're like 2-piece molds, easy, open, shut, boom.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, so, I mean,
Could you imagine the amazing Beyondo getting into molding and building his parts?
Be done.
Oh my god. That would be...
That would be cool.
That's
you
what I
got
was...
first-hand knowledge. You can hit up Mad Reaper. And
What's that?
Shit.
when you have first-hand knowledge, hit up Mad Reaper and he'll help you.
Yeah.
Or if you wanted help, I could even just send me the head. I could make the mold, and I could send you the mold back. And the resin part's straightforward.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying
Or
to
you
think
could
if
just
I
fly
have...
him down there and, he'll make it live in person.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to cover that actually. In that, I was trying to put together a complete video series. So I'm trying to figure out what figure I should do to go from scratch and like take it to the crazy level, like one of your pieces, like sculpted all over the arms and everything. Make
a whole tutorial?
Yeah.
That'd
Who do you think
cool.
would be a cool wrestler to do, like from start to finish, like?
Jeez.
Someone like I haven't done, because then it could be like, well, I've already thought about the parts, like I'm going to use Road Dogg legs, and then I feel like that leaves out a lot of my thinking, to where like once I have a wrestler be like, hey, this is my first time, we're making him, so you're going to see the process from beginning to end.
Right.
I've never done this before, so this is my process in the parts.
Yeah, because once you find a good recipe, you don't even think about it. You just say that's used. But if you actually go dig through your parts, sometimes you find, you might find those. Who was it? Justin Gabriel boots. And
Oh
like,
yeah,
hey,
yeah.
that's what we needed.
And Mattel's actually got a lot of those cool molds too, where I'm like, if you're looking at it, it's like, oh man, this new Undertaker figure, this Hall of Collection or whatever, this Hall of Champions, I was like looking at it and I was like, this head scan kind of looks like Cage, and because it has the same nose arch from the silhouette, and that's typically what I look for. And then I was like looking at the torso, and I was like, hey, this torso is actually perfect for like a Pentagon Dark. Like, I won't make mine on that torso, but like if I make a Mattel Elite Pentagon Dark, I'm like, oh, I totally want this Undertaker torso. It looks perfect.
Yeah.
Then those arms could do this, and the boots could, piece that thing out. Absolutely.
But so that's why I think it'd be cool to have a weird wrestler to kind of like go through that process, be like, we're looking for these kind of pants, thicker legs, so you're not looking for a cruiserweight. You know what I mean? Like, all the stuff we take for granted that goes on inside my head, I want to, like, get out there so I never get asked another question.
Yeah. Yeah, just start right from the beginning and just show you looking through your parts.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a simple man. The only thing I want is Beyondo to post more pictures of his customs. I go to your site all the time and refresh and
see if there's new one. I'm just working on the one for the competition now.
It needs
some of your old work on there. We love seeing your stuff.
I think you should do even work in progress pictures. I think you take some of the most beautiful work in progress pictures. That Ultimo Dragon one is literally ingrained in my mind because I'm like, that is like I get very artsy about it, and like that's like the Vitruvian man. You're like beyond like the Ultimo Dragon layout to me was like a cool piece of the thinking behind the final product. So you should do.
I love work in progress pictures. They just help us to appreciate everything.
What's that?
I love work in progress pictures because they just help us appreciate the work behind it. You know, it's like, oh, I did that. Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, sometimes you don't like with Nick's custom. You wouldn't know how much work went into it,
right?
Yeah,
without seeing those work in progress. It looks so simple, but it's not.
Yeah,
that's the key. It's making it look simple, even when it's not. So yeah,
and being so good that figure really looks like it was that way all along. You know, it's like, oh man.
Yeah. What parts did he use on that?
I think he used a Neville-style cruiserweight ripped torso. Then he ended up sculpting over that and building it to that Matt Cross's more muscle definition. And that
make you look at it and try to figure out like, oh, I should use that part, and you realize it's not even a real part. It's not real. He made it.
And that's what I was telling him. I was like, man, that was such an inspiring custom. Like, to me, I was like looking at that and I was like, that's Son of Havoc. Like, I mean, I was like, I told him, I was like, that Son of Havoc kicks mine's ass. Like, he sculpted the arm pads, he sculpted the laces on the side of the boots, like, and so it started really making me start looking at the future of my customs as more of one-offs and going completely nuts crazy. Like, just sell one, like, you know what I mean? Instead of trying to sell three, just sell one really badass one and do it. And we also talked about that too, because I was like, I never got into it to sell figures, you know. Like I got into it because I wanted my Lucha Underground toys.
I'll just mail it to you.
So
you and Beyondo, you can split this up half and half.
Oh man.
So I was thinking about. I wanted to ask you guys a question.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
How do you guys know each other? Nobody ever interviewed you guys.
It's crazy. Go ahead.
Backstory.
Well, we met because I saw his figures on the line, and I think in one of the wrestling groups I saw him, and we started talking, and then I bought some, and then he proposed this crazy idea that we should do a contest. And if we should do a web show, and then the next day we were all in business. You know, boom.
My story.
Do you ever make any customs, Pat? I feel like you've talked about it. Oh, right, you made your Jeff Jarrett.
Occasionally I do, but no, I'm not.
What happened was
enough to do it regularly.
Yeah, no, from my point of view, what happened was, we started talking, we bought some figures, we had a mutual love of Lucha Underground, so there was a conversation about wrestling that was happening, and Pat is a very social person, so it was easy to talk, and we could have a lot of conversations about the Lucha Underground, and so when we were talking, and really getting into just like figure stuff, being like, hey man, this is what this is this or that or whatever, it eventually got to the point where I'm like, man, we should just record this because, like, we're having these discussions. Why don't we just have these discussions and record them, And so that's where it started from. Right.
Who want to hear about this.
Right. And it was, like, purely a podcast first. And then it was, like, thinking about it, was like, why, I mean, people need you want to have a premise to build the podcast around. Otherwise, you're just talking for the sake of talking, right, and I mean,
podcast,
in the big picture, that's all any of us are ever doing. But like, I was like, I wanted it to be like kind of a TV show. So I was like, what could we build a programming around? And so I was thinking of these tournaments, like in UFC, being a huge fight fan, and then being a huge tattoo collector. I watched Ink Master the first couple seasons because the later one sucked, but the first couple seasons, and I was like, this is very doable here, and I liked the fact that Pat comes through with it with different eyes than us, because I wanted it to have two customizers and your main kind of host that was the glue and that has the experience, and he's the collector. So he's coming from the collector aspect and what makes a good figure and like not matching skin tones and stuff. So I was like, we need an Ink Master, but we need another judge, and that's where Joey. I was like, hey man, I know you don't know me. I got like 300, whatever. I was like, but I have an idea to do this tournament, and I had built a relationship with the decal Srick on Wrestling Customs, so I was like, hey, can we advertise on the group or whatever? And like, it was easy to kind of segue there, but it was crazy because exactly how we described it. That's how it happened, yeah.
That's amazing, because the things that I'm not good at, he's good at. The things that he's not so much good at, I'm good at. And we just kind of fill in where the other one leaves off. So it's amazing that worked out that way.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, in hindsight, I mean, it's kind of like American Idol, except I guess who's the Simon Cowell or the
that would be one. Funny. Have one of you guys just be a complete dick.
This thing sucks.
That shade of blue is 2 shades off.
What is
Yeah, which one of us do you think is the biggest dick when we're judging? Like, we're not trying to be, but I mean, there's one person that I feel like if I was in the contest, I'd be listening to, and I'm like, okay, let's see, what do you got?
Yeah.
I know I'd be trolling on myself, is what I'm saying. I'd totally be.
I think you guys are fair, and you can't just. You have to be honest. Somebody has to win. You can't just be like, oh, they're all good.
I think, man, my damn toys nailed it. It depends from figure to figure. Like sometimes, like in one round I'll be a little bit tougher, and then some rounds Matt Reaper's a little bit tougher, and then sometimes it's Joey, and then we pick on Joey, and then Joey's a lot nicer. And
yeah,
we're weird too because we're all different. Like Joey likes like the clean, crystal clean, like Mattel finishes, and then they looked off the factory floor, and then I like the like gritty Devil's Rejects, like they've been drugged through hell, kind of like capsulated into 6 inches forever. I'm like, all right. Oh, that verbiage was awful there too. What were you saying?
Oh, just I try to walk that line in between, gritty and factory, because you don't want it to look messy, and it has to fit in with your collection. Right,
and that's the thing that Joey was actually talking about. He's like, I really he fell in love with because of the psychosis, he fell in love with your style, and I think that is one of the most craziest things, is that customizers, your style is so based on you, like Beyondo. Like, it's a Beyondo style. It's not like Mattel, or you know what I mean? Like, it's not like...
Yeah, you can tell.
There's no other pillars. It's original. It's...
Yeah, everybody has their own style. Like, there are a handful of people where you could look at it like Showstopper. You'd be like,
Right.
That's a Showstopper, obviously.
Right.
Or anybody. They've all got their own style. Like Falcon, he's got his style.
CAW.
Yeah.
And they both got styles too that cater to their strengths, and I love those customs just as much as I love a clean one because of that and the character. You know, like it works. It works together. They work to, you know, they have to be harmonious.
Yeah, and some people are better at sculpting, some are better at painting. So you just work with.
That's the number one thing I say all the time on the show is play to your strengths. You know what you're good at, know what you're not good at, and try to cater to the things you're good at and compensate for things that you aren't good at.
Yeah.
So just have midlife crisis.
Always good to practice though, the things you aren't good at.
Well, that's the thing. Where did your style evolve from? Were you wanting to? What are your inspirations? Like with toy lines, do you collect anything else? And kind of where do you like see toy and product design? Because to me, it seems like out of yours are works of art. You know what I mean? Like I look at a Beyondo figure how I was told by, I think it was My Damn Toys. He got my Aleister Black. He's like, it looks so good. I don't even want to beeping touch it. And I was like, that's how I feel about Beyondo's work. Like both of our figures, and not only that, like this Eric Young by the Rocket Jabroni, like the Rocket Jabroni, but literally this Eric Young by Rocket Jabroni just to encapsulate the first season, and the champions. Like I'm like, man, I can't get that clean with the printer, and
that's the one he did the whole tattoo, right?
The final, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of his thing. I've seen. Have you seen his new ones?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, those. I get he's the tattoo guy.
Check that out. That's insane.
Yeah, it's good.
But you know what I mean. So like, you have this style. How do you respond when people look at your works and they're like, you can't even touch them? Like, what's your approach?
You mean like for
like what made you want to take it to that much level of detail? Were you upset with Mattel, or were you like, what got you into customizing as a whole?
I guess at the beginning it was just that I collected the WWF figures and I wanted WCW guys. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah,
insane.
Yeah.
And so for a while, it was just anything will do. Put a Stone Cold head on a body and it's Goldberg. But then
was it BCAs?
What's that?
Was it BCAs back in the time then?
Yeah, that was when I first started.
Wow.
And then people kind of, like you said, how it started getting a lot more about sculpting and making like statues, getting rid of the articulation. Then it kind of went back to like you'd keep the articulation but still sculpt like the elbow pad around the joint.
Yeah.
And I think all those just together, I try to, just do as much sculpting while keeping all the articulation. And
so basically you want to do what Mad Reaper wants to do. You want to take the Mark Farlane beauty piece of art and put it into the wrestling figure and make it look great.
Yeah, I mean, but I like having a starting point from the custom. I don't think I could do it from scratch like you're thinking about.
Oh, I disagree. You would kill it.
No, you can, but
you would kill it.
Kill it.
You would, if you had armature. If I put a piece of armature in front of you, human form and some clay, you would without a doubt kill it, because that's how talented you are. And your figures are actually sculpted, like from the shoulder pads, the masks. Like I love the Ultimo Dragon hit scan that Jax had. I love yours even more, and it's not the same, and people don't even, I don't think, register that. I mean, unless you're studying it like we are, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. I never liked how the Ultimo Dragon, the Jax one, it didn't have the shoulder pad.
Yeah, it was no shoulder pad. They had that version with the cloth cape that kind of acted like the shoulder pads, but it was not the same, and it wasn't removable.
Yeah.
Why isn't that on your site?
The Ultimo Dragon?
Yeah.
I think it's. I do have some pictures. I wish I had all of them. I wish I had all the pictures from my old ones. But
Make my job harder. No, but we
maybe
want you to
that's what you
post
should
more.
make. What?
We want you to post more. We love your work. So post working pictures, post old stuff, post everything.
I'll try to dig some up. I actually
Alright.
was at my mom's house over Christmas, and I found a bunch of my old stuff. They were all because I used to use what was it called? Sculpey.
Yeah, Super Sculpey.
Like you had to heat it.
Yeah.
And it never got strong.
No.
So I looked and they're all like beat up and cracked, and it's kind of disappointing.
That was mine
No,
too.
but it's really cool to see like the progression. You know, like when you started with bone crunching action figures, and then you started doing this and tweaking that, and
That was like this. Like back
making
in the day,
Beyondo Hall of Famer.
I had made this mask with Sculpey.
And it's still holding up.
It's so bad though, but yeah, then the pads or the boots here, this was before they came out with Sabu.
Yeah.
So I sculpted that. But like this was way like before like but when it was I think this was a Rey Mysterio 1 and then a Chavo torso. So this was like Ruthless Aggression 1 or 2 or 3, you know, like dealing with it. This was the first foray into Ruthless Aggression, but like yeah, it's Super Sculpty was the thing. I don't even know why, but it's so going off of what I was saying with that. Like, it's not brittle, or I mean, it's super brittle, but it's marketed and everyone was using it because it was supposed to be chip resistant and stuff. And I remember trying to I remember Beatty used to sculpt his heads and sculpt his heads from Super Sculpty from scratch and would bake it with a heat gun. And at the time, I had no idea what a heat gun was because I was like 10. I was like, what am I going to do with a heat gun? Like, so I boiled it, and I would sit there and boiling my Sculpey, and then
That's what I would do. I always boiled it.
Yeah.
Because if you put it in the oven, the whole figure would melt.
Yeah. I've tried baking it before when I was younger, and it turned black, but somewhere along the line, coming back, it was like epoxies and everything else. Like, clay had changed. You know, synthetic molding materials.
Probably because of the internet. Like, I think back then, if you went to Hobby Lobby or whatever, that's all you could find.
Yeah, I remember using folk art paints. I had some Walmart ribbon there and some old T-shirt for the back, and then an RVD ponytail. Like, yeah, it's just, man.
How far our boy Mad Reaper has come.
From that,
I still use folk art sometimes. I don't have a problem with it really.
I know. I always liked it.
The best, but
well, Rocket Jabroni uses which one did he say he uses? It wasn't folk art. Was it Americana?
Is it Apple Barrel?
Apple Barrel. Yes, it was Apple Barrel.
Like that, yeah.
And so it really is how you apply it, not so much the pigment. Because I mean, to me, like candidly speaking, I still kind of think that like Citadel's paint's not the greatest either. You know what I mean? Like paint is paint, I guess. You know what I mean? So like, it's definitely durable than a lot of things, more durable than a lot of things. But at the end of the day, it's like that building up that consistency. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's the skill.
It needs to be. Yeah, you work around there'll be clumps, but you just kind of you smooth them out. You just keep going.
Man, yeah. It's the old days.
This trip down memory lane has been brought to you by the Custom Underground Podcast.
It makes me want to have a category in the style of Beyondo or in the style of Beatty or the style, like all the right?
I'd
like
to see that people try to emulate Beyondo style. I think that would be great.
I think it'd be awesome. You know what I mean? Like, it's about doing something. It's about trying to replicate a style. Like I like gaming, so I like Borderlands, and I was like, I love their art direction on there, and I always want to do a figure painted like a Borderlands game. You know, like where I'm painting the black inside the nose and stuff. That cell shading.
You make it look 2D.
Yeah. I was like, that stuff's a challenge, you know.
Yeah.
Be fun.
I think it would be a good theme sometime if you could get everyone to agree. If everybody just made the same person,
Yeah.
then you'd really see the contrast of styles.
Right?
Yeah,
that guy made the exact same guy, but it's so different.
That's what I'd love to see too, because oh man, you can see that too in the people that end up doing the same customs. But if we had a full thing on it, it would be so perfect because we're hoping to switch to. I think we just discussed this in the first part of it too, the episode. But we're switching the scoring to more like a golf type bracket, to where it's not just dictated on the matchup, but like if you're top 8, then moving on. So I think something like that too would really benefit itself as far as being a single wrestler, because it's not just matchups now. You're not comparing 2 styles. You're seeing who's the best customs.
Yeah, and then nobody gets, if somebody drops out, then somebody gets a free pass.
Right.
Or they just won.
Yeah, that's
like they're
exactly what we're trying to address.
You're right, and that was Joey's idea. I mean, I'm like, I think that would work great. Let's do it that way, because now no one's screwed, and you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
Joey's awesome. Whenever we have a problem or something, or we need to come up with an idea, we talk to Joey, and he just cranks out all these ideas, like the gift of the gods and everything. So we're very glad to have him on board, because he's a smart guy. Yeah, well, he is a beast. Yeah, and we've confirmed he's human. So
yeah,
I'm going with Beyondo's cloning theory.
and half these ideas, if it was just one guy doing it, it wouldn't. You don't have anybody to bounce it off of. So
right.
Yeah.
I think the 3 of you make a good. I don't know, what would you call it? A triumvirate.
I like to call it Cerberus, the guard dog of the underworld.
Yeah,
3-headed.
3-headed dog. See, guys, I always remember that from. Do you ever play Final Fantasy?
Yeah, a little bit. We
Yeah.
I remember it from
You fight a Cerberus.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know. I played a Jason and the Argonauts game. It was like a terrible game, but I was such a nerd for Greek mythology that I was like, "Hey, this is Jason and the Argonauts," and I ended up playing it, and I was like, it was crazy. Actually, I think I made a custom for a class once. It was history. I made a Abraham Lincoln custom.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Brought it to class because it was like the art project class, and I was like, I want to make an Abraham Lincoln figure. It was super sculpty, too. That's how old it was.
Yeah, that's all they had.
But it's crazy because, like, they did the R3 figures, and I think those figures had the best molds. Like, I loved the molds on those figures. I mean, they were, like, the dimensions were a little, like, wonky, but, like, the detail was awesome.
I like the finger articulation.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And that's all you really need to... I just thought of this.
There was somebody that I remember that used to... They would make Jack's figures, but they would always use the TNA Toy Biz, like hands and stuff. It looked really cool, I thought.
Yeah, I know. I've seen someone... Actually, there's a thing on Figure Realm of how to articulate a hand, like by putting a needle into it and actually making this into a pin. And so,
you mean like kind of like not like what Creature Will does, but
not like that, except actually like making another articulation point. So where the metalls are articulated down here for this, it's going to be articulated here, but you're drilling, and then you're cutting the fingers.
Huh. I might think about that.
Yeah, and it's like pretty much the smallest drill bit, you're going in there, but then once you're cutting it, you still have that hole through them, and now you just plug it in there, but it's like on that. I've never tried it, but I know I've seen it on there, and I was like, that's pretty cool. Like,
yeah, because I had on the guy I'm working on right now, I made his hands flat. I boiled them and flattened them and like held them down for a day, and they stayed like that for like 2 days. But they eventually now they're back like this. So that might be a good idea.
That plastic is stubborn. Yeah, I know. I was too scared to try what Will does, but I know that would work too. Because I'm like, I think he said he used a 16 gauge wire too. So I was like, fit in there, but man, that's a margin. That's small margin for error inside those little hands.
Yeah.
I will gladly pay Will not to prick my own hands, so
Yeah.
I'm going to send off an order to him for sure.
On action figures, do you think it's cooler to have hand articulation or swappable hands? I'm like, oh man, I was definitely going to make him with the Zero Miedo sign. And now I'm like, maybe I just need to articulate the hands.
I don't know. Maybe just like a simple articulation, just so they can either hold something or not hold it.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't need individual fingers.
I was thinking of.
I like swappable hands too, though.
I do too. It's so tough though because I guess for the sake of the knuckle articulation though, that's one area where like it makes so much sense because you honestly couldn't tell like that it's articulated, and if you did it right from the factory, you wouldn't even need to have the pig hole showing. What you would do is just have an insert and then a cavity inside the other two fingers, so it just pop in, and like the boot going on to the thing. That's all you would need. And Mattel has that part, putting that mechanism of the boot into the fingers. Boom.
Yeah. And then you could make so many different, for so long, I remember people were saying that they wouldn't release a Big Show with a closed fist so he could do his punch.
Yeah.
And they finally did, but if they just had that, you could just close it.
Which one has that?
The new Toys R Us Fan Central one.
I didn't look at that figure. I just sold them today.
I think they gave him a new mold, a big.
Yeah, I think you're. It was crazy because I was just looking at these figures, and you're able to do that with just that articulation from the hand.
Yeah, and those are individually, right?
Those end up being individually. Yeah, they are individual, but they're only two hinges. The bottom two fingers are one piece that move together. And then the middle, these two are the only ones that move.
Weird.
But that's what I liked about these kind of ab articulation, or these, like the Storm Collectibles. This joint right there.
Yeah, the shoulder, or like the pec joint.
I want that to move for Pentagon if I could. I mean, if at the end of the day it's a cost thing, and I'm like, okay, but if I could, totally, because I love that piece there. I mean, you can do actually, like... And I'm thinking, like, you need to have Pentagon, like, break people's arms. Like, I want him breaking Guile from Street Fighter's arms, Joker's arms. Everyone I want to see Pentagon breaking arms on work desks. Yeah. Like, you need to have him to be able to do this with his pectorals,
Yeah. That should be your promotion. Just a whole bunch of pictures and videos of him breaking people's arms.
Breaker of arms. Like, see, Hulk Hogan can do it with that joint, and that's where it's possible.
Yeah, or like if Brock Lesnar had that, he could do suplexes.
What? And you can really do stretches too when wrestlers being held. Like you're not limited by this far now. You can go back, and it's like
rings of that.
Right, and make it look even more painful.
Yeah.
But that's a couple ideals that I have.
Mad Reaper is always thinking. He's a thinking man.
Thinking man.
I'm a rambling man now.
Rambling thinking man. Even more dangerous. All right, though. Been on the phone for an hour and a half. I'm getting hungry. Wow. So we got to wrap this up, guys. We could talk to Beyondo for literally, 24 hours straight, because just reminiscing, talking about the good times.
This is awesome. And now, now the amazing Beyondo, the Great Beyondo.
Hall of Fame.
No, not only that, but you are the most. You are the guest that has the most time on this show ever.
Oh, you mean cumulative?
Cumulative, yes.
Yeah, I guess this is the third time.
Yeah, yes. And we're thank you, because every single time you come through, like we get knowledge bombs and history lessons and
absolutely
thought processes. So I mean, dude, I'm stoked that we have you again, because we're looking forward to doing a lot of things.
Yeah, and it gets you. I mean, just talking about it, it's not a thing you can talk to a lot of people about. You don't go into work and say, "Hey, What do you guys think about boot molds?
Right.
Yeah. So
I
when you
wish
talk
I
it out,
could
it's
do-
kind of like the Big Show hand thing. Like
It's so
you
true.
just kind of realize something that you didn't realize until you talk it out.
Yeah, it's very niche, but very expansive because there's a lot of history and there's a lot of toy lines. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
what Mattel says are true. They're the biggest selling toy biggest selling action figure, and I believe it. You know, they're
Yeah.
beasts.
I mean, they put out so much.
They're a well-oiled machine for sure. I'm like, either way, I don't want to start talking about the company again because I want to talk right now. But I'm like, thank you for being on though again. We
Thank you
really
for coming
appreciate
on.
it.
How can you guys?
And we definitely have you on again. And then before the next season, the ultimate customizer or whatever we're gonna call it. But
Still season 2. Season 2B.
season 2B.
But we'll come up with some cool name for the show. So.
And then when you put this one out, it'll be about a week until the customs are due, right?
Yeah.
Right.
It'll go out tomorrow. I'm gonna work on it and get it out tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm coming for you, Matt. My damn toys.
All right.
It's gonna be my damn toys.
That's what I was gonna say. I was like, for this World Cup, we should really like try to do promos on on the other countries. Like,
Your face all
Beyond those damn toys. Been renamed.
like, I like you, showstopper, but tonight you're going down because this is my world. 6 inches. That's all I need.
I'm just gonna throw it out there right now. When you guys trash talk in our forum, I'm going to post it for everyone. I'm just gonna be like, "Look at these guys going at it."
And what we'll do though is we'll reach out to other members and have this like we'll pick one so that we're working it together and it'll just be a complete work. It'll be like Booker T and Corey Graves, and it'll be like Beyondo and Rocket Jabroni hate each other, and Showstopper and Mad Reaper, and we'll just pretend like he's still judging, but he's upset, and see how many people we could trick.
Yeah. Go over to somebody's house and like start breaking all their customs.
They're like having a picture of their custom, and then you're lighting it on fire, and you'll be like,
Yeah.
that will be your legacy after the World Cup.
I want Beyondo to win one of these.
Your cup. It's mine.
He's got a Hall of Fame one.
Dark?
Yeah. And then one day, you'll have to win one of these.
Yeah, that's cool. I love how you showed it has the little stand that you can put your winning custom on. That's awesome.
I like that finish too. It looks weathered and gritty like
Yeah.
Lucha Underground.
Cool.
Awesome. Sounds
Okay,
good.
well,
Well,
great talking to you guys.
take care, bro. I
Great
appreciate
talking to
it.
you.
Thank you again. All right. See ya.
All right.
Amazing,
Yeah.
Beyondo.
Amazing.
Hello and welcome back. That is the Hall of Famer, the amazing Beyondo. What a great guy. So much knowledge. And it's just always great to have him on the show. He has officially racked up the most accumulative time on our show, and he has earned it.
Yeah, we got to thank Beyondo for being on again. This is his third time being on, and, for me, man, I think Beyondo is our Undertaker, so it was always cool to have him on, and we could talk a long time, and as you guys did. So if you're listening to this, thank you for making it towards the end. And if you're listening to this long, then let us know, because we want to know, and let us know like literally what we could do better, because we'd love to have all of us on board and talking. I'd like more panels even. I know it's going to be hard to figure out, but if we could have open forums, we appreciate it, because like Beyondo said, this is very hard to talk about with anyone else. This is really niche stuff here, and you can't relate to a lot of other people, but we can relate to each other, so it'd be cool.
People you like to have on the show, segments you might like to see. We've been changing up the format a little bit this time around. We've been gunning with our guests right out of the gate. I think that works really well. It's one of my favorite things to do now. And so anything we can do better, anything that you think might be good on the show, segments, people you want on, comment below. hit us up on Facebook, hit us up on Instagram, let us know. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. We appreciate you, and if you've tuned in this long, you can call yourself a super fan.
Super fan, and let us know. I'll send you a custom underground sticker. Guys, let us know. I got a lot of we want to grow it. We want everything good. So, talk to you guys later. Boom.
Custom underground.